This video is about female menstrual cycle. Now, there might be a lot of you that will feel a little uncomfortable about having this conversation, but I believe it to truly be important and necessary. Our hormonal cycle is an amazing tale of what is happening inside of our body. And also, it is vital to understand that our menstrual cycle, because there are so many hormonal changes that are happening to us, really influences how we show up in the world on everyday basis. It influences how I sleep. It influences my openness to the world. It influences my desire to be social or having this feeling of being completely antisocial. It influences how I communicate, the way I create, the food that really satisfies me and the food that doesn't, and even like a sexual openness to my partner. Is so much we are under the influence of that. If we don't understand this about being a woman, the physical aspect of being a woman, we can really find ourselves struggling. And that is why I want to bring it here. I personally thought that I'm understanding pretty well my cycle, and it wasn't until recently I just grabbed 2 books and really honed in onto all the information about what to eat, how to care for myself, that I discovered that there's so much to know and how much easier I can make my life. And I want to share this information with you here. Because even science is picking up on the importance of female menstrual cycle. So much so that in 2015, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists suggested that the menstrual cycle will be the 5th vital sign. That is next to our body temperature, blood pressure, breathing rate, and our pulse. That's how important it is. That's how much it says about our own well-being. And there's so much interesting information to discover. So just as an example, just so you can see whether you know stuff or you actually a little bit in a place of not knowing as well, let me share with you 3 interesting facts that I found, and you can see how much you know, how much you did not know. The first piece of information I want to share with you is actually about how high we get when we are menstruating. So it is said that actually during our menstruation, we get inward, right? Like we turn into ourselves and we get into this space that feels like sitting in meditation. And there are also hormones that actually kind of throw us into this haze and altered states of consciousness. And I find it funny that once a month we can get into this space of heightened sensitivity and kind of feeling high without actually any drugs involved. Second thing that I found absolutely fascinating is how we are generationally interconnected. So when a child is growing inside of the mother's uterus, at about the 20th week, if it's a girl, her ovaries are also developed to a degree, and to such a degree that the amount of eggs that she will have throughout her life is already in her ovary. At that time is about 7 million. By the time the girl is born, there is about 1 million eggs. By the time she reaches puberty, there is about 400,000 of them, and only about 400 actually make it through the whole cycle of ovulation and being released, and potentially being released from the body as well through the menstrual blood. And it is nothing else than just the body choosing high quality egg to release. That's why not all of the eggs make it. And what is even more amazing, when we apply it, it means that in my grandmother's uterus, when my mom was there already, I was inside of her ovary. So in one time, all 3 of us were one body. It's absolutely insane. And the third fact is connected to the birth control. The pill that we are actually given, and I didn't know this, it changes our hormones to the degree that the ovulation just doesn't occur at all. And if there is no ovulation, there is actually no uterine lining being created, and hence there is actually no menstruation. So the bleed that we are experiencing when we are not taking the pills is actually a withdrawal bleed. And this made me pretty angry because no one it's nothing I knew, and I took the pill for several years. So how do you find this? It is an information that you knew, or is there something actually to learn? I'm no expert on this topic. I already said that I'm a student myself, so this video is the baseline of understanding of what is there. And in the description, you can actually find the resources that I've used to collect this information. And I would highly recommend, if you're interested, to go to these women, because they are devoting their whole lives to the study of female menstrual cycle, and they are great resources to dive deeper and to understand also the problematics that come with the cycle. We will begin here with understanding where the female menstrual cycle actually fits in. So we are used to the notion of circadian rhythm in our lives, but there is another one, and that's the infradian rhythm. So circadian rhythm is the 24-hour cycle. It is actually interconnected with the sun, right? Like rising and then the sunset and all the night stuff. And this is how we run our lives on this daily cycle. It is how our metabolism works. It influences our digestion. It influences our sleeping patterns. And that's what it gets often spoken about how we sleep, how we nourish ourselves. It is the day-to-day. It is the daily tasks. It is the daily routines that we are following. The circadian rhythm is something that starts the day we are born and ends the day we die, for both men and women. But what is to be said is definitely that men are far more prone to thrive on this cycle. Where women thrive, and what's really important to us as well, is the 28-day cycle, the infradian cycle. So that's more like the moon cycle. It has similar patterns. But what it means is that not only we are influenced by the cycle that occurs within the 24-hour period, we are influenced by a cycle that stretches over 28-day period, and that is our menstrual cycle that happens from the puberty until we reach the menopause. And I'm sure that you know it from the practice that that's not what is spoken about, and our world really doesn't work that way. Our world is based on the circadian rhythm, and that is why it is still rare to find a woman that is actually honoring her cyclical nature and is able to do so with the lifestyle that we are meant to lead. But there are great benefits to be drawn from understanding both and actually being able to balance them better, because they influence one another as well. And it is not that we can just deny our nature and our cyclical nature and we can just ignore it. No, the way to thrive for a woman is in learning how to balance both of these cycles. Our menstrual cycle has certain characteristics that classify it as a normal and healthy, and any deviation then can help you to realize whether there is something happening internally in the body. It is definitely a process to learn how to read your own body, but understanding my menstrual cycle is bringing a next level self-awareness into not only what is mentally happening to me or emotionally happening to me, but what is happening also on the physical body within my system on monthly basis. Normal cycle lasts anywhere between 28 to 32 days. The menstrual cycle itself, the menstruation, is somewhere 4 to 7 days. That's what's normal. The bleeding should be somewhat heavy, but not too heavy that you have a fear of bleeding out, and there should be no clots present. And even the color can actually indicate what is hormonally happening in our body. So deep red cranberry juice color is perfect, but maybe if it's too pink or too brown, that also can show you that there is something out of balance inside of you. And definitely any level of discomfort that causes you to stop living or going to work is also abnormal. What has been the biggest thing to understand about my menstrual cycle is that it has certain phases. There are 4 in total. There is follicular phase, there is ovulatory, there is luteal, and there is menstrual phase. And the easiest way how to look at them is actually through the lens of seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. As you can see on this table, the 28-day Infradian cycle can be divided into two phases, the proliferative and the secretory phase. So it is just based on what is happening with the egg. In the proliferative phase, it is the maturing of the egg. The body is preparing for potential pregnancy. And in the secretory phase, it is what happens in the body when the pregnancy doesn't occur. It's the release of the blood, and all the hormones change as well, again to find a certain equilibrium. And these phases then are what gets divided into the four of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. So the spring is the follicular phase, that's 7 to 10 days. The ovulatory is the summer, that's 3 to 4 days. The autumn is the luteal, that's 10 to 14 days, and then the menstrual is the 4 to 7 days. That's the winter of the cycle. Now, the books that I'm including in the description have really in detail described what happens in the body on every possible level throughout these stages. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of an understanding, and again, I highly recommend that you read one of these books if you want to dive deeper. The time when we start to measure our period is usually the winter. So the day one of our cycle is the first day of our menstruation. So let's start there. The winter is the menstrual part of the cycle, and it usually lasts 4 to 7 days. It is when we are incredibly inwardly. When you take it according to the season, it's like the hibernation state. We want to just withdraw from the world. It is usually cold outside, so you just want to hide. You just want to be with yourself. You're just seeking this place of calmness. We are actually incredibly drawn internally. Our ability to actually feel ourselves and feel our body is heightened. And it's just because there's so much occurring inside of ourselves. It is the nature's way how to actually allow the body to go through this process and not overwhelm ourselves, but trying to run around the whole neighborhood. It is usually the time where we just want to keep warm, eat some nourishing food. Some can even feel very antisocial to the point that you don't even want to be touched by your partner. It is difficult to communicate. It is difficult to be social whatsoever. It is really the time when we just want to go in and hibernate and just go through this phase with grace. And it is the truth that how we care for ourselves in the winter actually influences how we experience the next cycle in general. After winter, after the hibernation, the spring arises, the follicular phase, which we find ourselves in for about like 7 to 10 days. And it is the coming out of the hibernation, right? Like when you experience spring, you start to get the energy back. You want to be back out in the world. You feeling more open, more social. The communication is coming back, and you just want to be out there. It is very easy to try new things, to experiment, and it is this time of preparation. It is you're setting yourself up for the whole cycle, and you're slowly opening day by day more and more to what is to come. This is a great time to think about what you want your next cycle to be about. It is the great time to plan it. It is the great time to put your intentions forward and take this journey of opening day by day more to the life around you. It is not to immediately jump from winter to spring and expect that you're just going to be out there exuberant. It is a process. So every day of a spring, we feel more and more open. And it is a joyous and playful process to be part of. Because as we do that, we are moving on to the next stage, and that's the summer. Summer is all about being out there, conquering the world. We are so easy to communicate, to express our ideas, to speak clearly and concisely. And we have just this massive energy. I found myself also magnetic, right? Like I'm drawing attention in, and I don't even have to move a finger. I'm naturally energetic. It is a great time for me to socialize, to be open to the world. I just find it really easy to go out there and just feel incredibly alive. The last stage is the autumn. So the 10 to 14 days between the summer and winter. So naturally, there is the decline from summer, from the highest potential and highest energy we have experienced. We are slowly going into the hibernation. It is a great time to bring our projects to the end and also to edit and review anything that was happening. We tend to see things clearly in this stage. So whatever's coming up is actually, yes, there are hormonal changes happening that can make us more erratic, but also these hormones are actually just shining light on what is already there. So if stuff comes up to the surface in this stage and it's really hard to deal with them, there's certainly something to look at and to have a moment with, this is the time to be really truthful and honest with yourself and really see whether what you're doing in your life, what you have done in the past month, is really working for you or not. And our ability to be discerning in this matter shows up also in a little bit funkier way, because our self-criticism gets a little bit higher here. So we are more prone to give ourselves hard time. So the invitation here is also to just be compassionate and just kind to yourself, because it's just also these hormonal fluctuations that are just happening and are slowly drawing us inwards, which can drive us a little bit nuts sometimes. Those are the 4 stages. These fluctuations are insane, and we can find ourselves in a very distinctly different places within a month. We are like different humans walking in the same physical body. So understanding how these fluctuations actually happen for you and what is happening on a mental level, on your emotional level, how you're experiencing the food you are eating, understanding all these details can bring a lot of balance, because you will be able to take care of yourself in a better way. And to be able to understand yourself in this way, there are 2 things necessary, right? Like, one is some study, and the other one is actually tracking your own cycle, because each of our cycles is a little bit specific. Stuff will show up for you in a very unique way. So the best thing you can do is to actually grab a journal and start tracking your cycle. So me personally, I'm measuring my basal body temperature every morning, which can also show you how your cycle actually moves along the way. And then there are other aspects like how the food makes me feel, how am I feeling emotionally, how am I feeling around big groups of people, how am I communicating with the world. You can actually track things like also the cervical position if you want to really go deep into this. And there's so much. So I have actually a list of aspects that you can track. So I included them in the description of the video, and you need nothing else than just a journal and start writing things out, whatever you think is of importance. And eventually, once you track 1 to 3 cycles, you will start seeing patterns in your behavior and in the things you need and desire in different parts of the cycle. I do want to share with you one tool that I've learned from the books that I've read, and I found it incredibly simple yet incredibly profound, because I really felt different on a physical level doing it, and that's seed cycling. Both Alisa Vitti and Rosie Hill speak in their books about seed cycling, which is basically eating different seeds within different parts of your cycle. So again, in detail, I'm including it in the description, but I'm just going to explain it quickly now. The whole idea behind seed cycling is actually that they contain stuff that helps to balance our body hormonally. So within the first 2 phases of the cycle, the follicular and ovulatory, you would eat the pumpkin and flax seeds. And during the second part, the luteal and the menstrual, it would be sesame seeds and sunflower seeds. In each of these phases, the aim is to eat about 1 to 4 spoons each day. And that alone is already actually doing this one thing of connecting to your cycle and also bringing into your body the nutrition that it really needs to actually balance everything with grace. And I personally really noticed like this feeling of fullness and warmth inside of me. And it is like, it is like internally I've been given something extra, something that really serves me. So that's why I want to share it here as this one way how to already tap into the magic of what a simple change in nutrition can actually do for you. And this is the whole section about female menstrual cycle. I hope that you have learned something useful. And once again, the resources are in the description of this video, so that's the place to go if you want to dive deeper, which I would highly recommend if you are still a bleeding woman. And also if you are already post-menopausal, because there are still things to learn in terms of how we can connect our cyclical nature to the moon phases as well. But again, more on that is in the books below.